Welcome and well met, all my fellow adventurers. Thank you for joining me here today for our next discussion. And as you could probably guess from the title, it's to go over future jobs for the upcoming expansion of 7.0, as well as any other future expansions afterwards. Maybe a little bit early to talk about this, but with 6.4 right around the corner, as well as the fan festival in a couple months' time, it could be fun to try and speculate what the game is currently missing to warrant new jobs. As of right now, we have a total of 19 jobs for both War and Magic classes, plus 1 limited job, 8 crafting jobs, and 3 gathering jobs. Ever since the release of Stormblood, we've had 2 new jobs released with every expansion, with the exception of Heavensward, where we had 3 in the forms of Dark Knight, Machinist, and Astrologian. Stormblood had Samurai and Red Mage, Shadowbringers had Gunbreaker and Dancer, and the latest release of Endwalker had Reaper and Sage. Also, each one of these Disciples of War and Magic jobs can be separated into one of 3 roles, in the form of a tank, healer, and DPS, or damage per second if you prefer. Most people already know about this, so I'm not going to go into too much details, but getting new jobs has always been one of the biggest things that players look forward to with every new expansion. In fact, it has always been a critical part of any game in the Final Fantasy series. So much so that it isn't uncommon at all to reuse classic jobs from previous games and revamp them for players in future games. 14 does this in a good way by taking some of the most popular jobs from previous Final Fantasy games and making them unique to the worlds of Hydaelyn by giving them their own background story, weapons, armor, attire, etc. New players then start off by picking one of the starting jobs, which really only decide what city to start off in, for once they reach level 10, they're free to go off to do any of the other quest givers and learn new jobs while also being able to unlock other jobs later in the game. This has always been a really popular part of 14, but one has to ask, with so many jobs now, what else could we be expecting? Well, the way I see it, there are 3 things that are required when the dev team is deciding upon a new job. One is that they have to be able to fit one of the 3 roles of tank, healer, or DPS. 2, the job has to make sense in the world of Eorzea and beyond. In other words, the job has to be able to fit in amongst this world of magic and gods. And 3, they have to bring something unique to the table that the other jobs do not have. But with us having so many at this point, it's becoming harder and harder to try to predict what could be waiting for us next, especially since the most popular jobs from past Final Fantasy games seem to already be in it. In fact, it's now gotten to a point that Yoshi P has stated that they have no choice but to start coming up with jobs that haven't appeared in the Final Fantasy series before, so their very own unique, original jobs could be starting off here in 14. Or at the least, they have to start revamping older jobs with new lores and weapons like what they did with the Sage, with giving them Norlith weapons instead of the traditional staff or rod. So I went ahead and compiled a list of all the remaining jobs that I could really think of that really stand out from the Final Fantasy series. I put them into one of 3 categories for this video. The most likely list, the no way it's ever gonna happen list, and I guess we'll call it the maybe list, but the odds are not in their favor. I should also point out that many jobs can be very similar to the current ones that we have, or even have borrowed abilities, so they will not be counted. For example, we have the Ranger job, which uses classic bows and arrows, or even crossbows. So that can very easily be compared to the Archer or Bard. Alright, let's start off with the most likely jobs that could be added someday. If not in 7.0, then I can see them being added in future expansions. It's not a 100% guarantee, of course, just the ones that I personally feel have the most likely shot of being added in a future expansion because they've either been mentioned before, or we could very easily find a way to fit them into the world of Hydaelyn. Starting off with is the Beastmaster. Beastmaster has been hinted at a lot in the past, and many have speculated that it could work as either a tanking or DPS job, possibly even a new limited job. Now, we've seen examples of the Beastmaster a few times in 14. The most famous example would be for anyone who's done the Boja's Southern Front. We have an enemy who is able to call forth a variety of beasts to fight for him. So we technically already have a job that does something like that in the form of the Arcanist and the Summoner, but our summoned pets are born from ether. They're not real breathing beasts, so that would definitely be something different and interesting. So I think that we have a good chance of seeing some kind of version of this later on, maybe using some small throw-in axes or whips as was traditionally used with the Beastmaster. And if it's not either a DPS or a tank, I think it could have potential to become a new limited job, like where maybe it's like Pokemon, where you can go out and hunt down certain creatures, capture, and then train them. Next up is the Chemist. This is also a job that's been speculated for a long time. In fact, it was the most predicted healer job since Shadowbringers. They have all manner of effects such as healing and doing damage without the need for using MP. Most famously, they can use a mix ability that allows them to combine 2 items into one for all manner of effects. I feel that the best type of storyline for this would be connected to Garlemald. Since pure-blooded Garleans can't use magic, this could be something that they have come up with to make up for it. Perhaps some Garlean wishes to spread the knowledge of the Chemist to help do good in the world, but most wouldn't look twice at him because of course he is Garlean. And maybe it could be up to the Warrior of Light to show the world that even though something is Garlean doesn't mean that it's bad. It could be a good step in helping to build bridges with Garlemald. Plus, it gives us a good potential healing job that doesn't require MP, which is certainly different. Next up is the Gambler. Gambler is a job that relies on chance and luck in battle with all manner of abilities involving slot wheels or roulettes. Their abilities are often random, but if you play them right and luck is on your side, then you can deal high amounts of damage. They often use strange weapons such as dice or playing cards, and tell me that this doesn't sound like a job that would be fit right into a place like the Gold Saucer. We've seen traces of the Gambler abilities, but have yet to really see someone who is able to use such abilities in battle. But I do think that this could be another limited job. We could learn all manner of abilities and play all types of games while within the Gold Saucer, testing our luck against all manner of foes at the same time. Even if it doesn't work out exactly like that, I do think that the Gambler is something that we will be seeing someday. Next up is Geomancer, which is by far the most likely job and most talked about of all potential future jobs. It has been hinted about since Stormblood, both from the Astrologian questline, but also from the Swallow's Compass. It's a job that's able to control weather and use the terrain to attack enemies, all the while wielding bells and poles in battle. Now, unlike the others, this is a job that has been confirmed to exist already in the world of 14. I remember right before Shadowbringers came out, people were convinced that we would be getting the Geomancer and the Chemist as the most likely new jobs. But now I think that the perfect candidate for becoming a new Geomancer, or kind of the poster child for the Geomancer, would be Kryl. Now, it's been stated that Kryl is going to be having a much bigger role in the next expansion, and I don't see why she wouldn't be getting an upgrade because of that. I do think that since she is a powerful spellcaster, then she could learn to master Geomancer spells for both healing or a DPS role. Either way, I do think that this is the most likely job that we will be seeing sooner or later. Next up is the Mystic Knight, also known as the Rune Knight, the Rune Fencer, Spellblade, or Spell Fencer. Has a lot of names. This is a job that is skilled in both magic and swordsmanship and are able to not only infuse their blades with magical runes to enhance their abilities, but they're also strongly resilient to magic as a whole. Now, I know that we already have a couple jobs that can do both magic and swordplay, such as the Paladin and of course the Red Mage, but I remember thinking back to the Alan Megan Blade Dancers, and I can't help but think that the Mystic Knight would be a perfect fit for that. I can imagine that they could have once been a personal guard for the King of Alamigo, or rebels who once fought against him, all the while using spells whenever they strike with their blades. This could be a good DPS, but could also become our first magical tanking job. Either way, I do hope we get to see the Mystic Knight sometime soon. Next is the Puppet Master. This is a job that uses mammoths or some manner of puppets to aid them in battle. It can be customized to fulfill a variety of roles that use a number of techniques. And so this is a job that I think could not only be a good DPS role, but could also be a potential limited job as well. Like with the Beastmaster, we can customize and build our own mammoths to fight beside us so that they can do many different types of attacks. We do know that mammoths are a thing in this world, both in Udal and Sharlayan, but I think that it would be a perfect place to start off in Udal, as we slowly build up our own little robot army to take over the world. I mean, slowly work for world peace. Either way, I think that we can come out on top here. Next is the Green Mage or the Elementalist. I kind of put these two together because I can see them both being used as the same thing. Green Mages specialize in using something known as green magic, and why not continue on with our mage collection at this point? They specialize in being able to buff allies and debuff enemies, which is something that we are missing since the changes made to Summoner. Despite how Green Mage is still pretty new compared to the other mage jobs, I can easily see them changing things around it to give it a more of an elementalist feel, which is a job that can use the power of the elements in battle for a variety of reasons. Now, I know that we already have that in the forms of like the White Mage and Black Mage and all that, but we could be specializing as a DPS support role with the Green Mage. I can see it having maybe a couple healing spells just in case, but it's mostly going to be a job in helping our allies while damaging our foes, which would give healers a break to focus on healing us while we remove all manner of ailments, while also doing damage over time. Maybe they'll be able to do what the Bard used to do and help refill MP or HP over time. At least I think it would be a good job to have, and certainly something different. And finally, we have the Judge, which is a bit more complicated than the other jobs we have here because Judge isn't technically a job. It was really more of a title from Final Fantasy XII, but we do have a version of it here in 14 in the form of the Legatuses from Garlemald. So like with Chemists, I think that this is a job that could fit right in from Garlemald, such as, for example, we have a soldier from the Garlean army who managed to escape and is trying to rebuild his life, but he's so used to his life on the battlefield that he really doesn't know how to have a normal life anymore. Or how about this? We have Gaius teach us. I would seriously love that. Also, I think that it could use a pair of dual swords like we've seen in 12 and could easily pass as a form of a tank, showing the people of Eorzea that those from Garlemald are also people, and again trying to help build those bridges with someone who was once our enemy. And those are the jobs that I think would best fit in with a future expansion. Okay, so we will be moving on to the jobs next that I feel are not gonna make it into the game. It's nothing personal, it's just I don't really see a need to have to add those into the game. This is just my personal opinion on what I've seen, so if I say that your favorite job is on this next list, I'm sorry, but unless 14 really finds a strong, solid way to actually include these jobs that makes sense, I don't really see them coming to Eorzea, either because they simply don't make sense story-wise to add them, or because we already have jobs that are just so similar there's little point in adding them. First off the bat is the Berserker. Now, we've seen traces of Berserker before, such as in the final boss from the Hero's Gauntlet, and I admit that the idea of being able to use a weapon like that is pretty cool, but I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening. Nothing against Berserker, but we already have the Warrior. Not only are they very similar in appearance-wise, and even using similar weapons in previous games, I mean, the Warrior's job quests literally involve learning to tame the inner beast and managing to keep it under control so that you don't go, berserk. Do we really need to add another job that was infamous for being so wild that you lose control of your own inner beast? I personally don't think so, so while I think it would be cool, especially to have it as a new tank, I have to disagree with this one ever coming to the game. Next up is Mime, so no, just no right away. I mean, this is a cool job in that it can copy an enemy's moves and use them against them. Problem is with this idea though is we already have the Blue Mage job, which does exactly that. So not only that, but the end of the Blue Mage quests from Stormblood was literally us fighting against a real mimic. So sorry, I just don't see us needing another job exactly like the Blue Mage, especially since Blue Mage is going to be getting another level up with the patch of 6.4. Next up is Thief. So as the name suggests, this is a job that is infamous for being able to use all manner of blades like daggers and knives, but also has the power to steal loot from enemies while cutting them down. Now we already have the ninja that can fit the role of a knife wielder. I mean, they actually have one of the thief's most classic moves, the ability of mug. In fact, another name for thief is rogue, which is what we start off with before leveling up to ninja at level 30. And we already get plenty of loot from many types of monsters when we slay them, so much so that our inventories fill up pretty fast, so I just don't see the need to add in a thief, so sorry to all thieves out there. Next we have the Necromancer. Now this has been a job that has been requested for a very long time, and I can understand the appeal. It's cool, dark, and edgy, though we already have the Dark Knight for that. Thing is that I just don't see them being able to add this into the story that would make sense, especially since we've already gone up against quite a few foes who have tried to bring back the dead, which is exactly what Necromancer is all about, you know, summoning the souls of the dead to fight for you. I can see this being taboo in so many ways. In fact, Yoshi P himself has stated during an interview before that even though Necromancer has been requested so often, he never has any plans to have one added to the game, which I think pretty much closes the case. While I can imagine it being a powerful magical DPS job, I don't think Necromancer will be part of the game unless it's as an enemy. We have the Arithmetician or the Calculator, which are unique spellcasting jobs because they have access to abilities that can use mathematics in combination to their spellcasting. Arithmeticians can use level and height multiples as conditions when selecting spells to target enemies and so much other stuff, though of course I don't really see them adding this because we already have the Arcanist, which literally does this as well, which then branches out to both Scholar and Summoner, so this one, I'm sorry, I think it's safe to say we'll never see a revamp in 14. Next we have the Divine or the Holy Knight. This is a job that has been famous for being able to use divine or holy magic, such as light magic, but also having the bonus of using swords and shields. Well, hate to break it to you, we kinda already have that in the form of the Paladin, and yes, Paladin can use a handful of healing and attacking spells, so I think we can technically already have a Holy Knight. Of course, I think it would be cool if we could go to a place like, say, Ishgard and maybe unlock some secret powers that only a handful of knights are able to use, for an example, maybe even abilities that were used way before the Dragon Song War, but otherwise they just don't bring anything really new to the table, do they? And finally we have the Onion Knight, which has been a classic since Final Fantasy III. Or 6, if you prefer. Complicated there. Either way, while we do have several types of outfits that do involve the term of Onion Knight, this is a job that can use several types of abilities from other jobs, such as both healing and attacking, magic and melee. It's kind of similar to the Freelancer job, though it has no real role here since it can do a little bit of everything, but no real solar system to call home until you reach max level. I suppose the best that it could become is another limited job, though how that would work may be more trouble than it's worth. Now again, I have to apologize if I spoke badly of a job that you personally love and have been wanting to see for a long time. This is just my own personal opinion on the matter, like I said. There's always a chance that they could add it later down the line, I suppose, but they would really need to work hard if they can make the job work in the world of 14. The rest of the jobs that I'm about to list are, I guess we'll call them the maybe group. They're jobs that could still be added, but the odds are slim. Like I said before, the dev team would have to get really creative to be able to work them in, but they at least have a fighting chance. So we'll start off with the Corsair, which is a special job that kinda based off the Gambler and the Machinist. They're able to use more traditionally special hexagons to deal damage and have a wide range of attacks inspired by the Gambler job. I think it would be a good role if we were unlocking it in Limsa, especially since it does seem to fit in with the atmosphere there. And I can perfectly imagine a story involving bringing back the Corsair, since they did have a job similar to this back in 1.0, so definitely a maybe later down the line. Time Mage is a job that I have been wanting to see, but as time goes on I find it less and less likely that we'll see it, mostly because of the complications whenever dealing with time travel. I do see Time Mage as a booster and damager, such as being able to extend buffs and reduce debuffs, so it could become a good healing job. problem is trying to find a way to make it fit into Eorzea, which won't cause people to try to start lining up to learn how to control time. So possibly, but maybe not. Next up we have the Devout, also known as the Shaman, which is a very powerful healing job. Now, we can always use more healers, but we already have the White Mage, which the Devout is really just a powered up version of. So unless we go ahead and somehow power up the current jobs and evolve them again, I don't really see us having a need for it, unless the dev team does what they did to Sage and makes some major changes to it. Viking is another job that can use giant hammers and axes, and while they are slower than other melee jobs, they do a lot of heavy damage. So I can see them as a powerful melee job, though personally I think they would be best used as a tank. Maybe we can unlock this job either in Ishgard or Limsa, since Vikings were kind of like pirates in the old days. That would be a lot of fun though, if I have to be honest. Because Vikings were basically just old school adventurers, and I can see us totally jumping on board a ship and just heading off to the unknown. Personally, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings when it comes to 10-2, but I always did really enjoy the songstress job, and like what I suggested with the Green Mage, this could be a job that specializes in inflicting all manner of debuffs on the enemies and buffing the party. I would really love to add this to the game as part of a DPS role, especially because I can see both Songstress and Dancer teaming up. But as much as I adore the thought, we already have the Bard, so personally I don't see it happen, but hey, a girl can dream, can't she? Although another job I did like from 10-2 was the Gun Mage, which can use a variation of effects from Blue Mage and even learn new abilities from enemies. So kind of a magical range DPS, but with bullets, which is pretty neat. But we already have the Blue Mage, the Machinist, and the Gunbreaker, so I can't really see us actually having a need for it. Now, Oracle has always been a very powerful healing job, but like with the Devout and the White Mage, we already kind of have another job that is really just a powered up version of it in the form of the Astrologian. I mean, Astrologian does have some characters that can see into the future by reading the stars. And despite the fact that Reen was once considered to be the Oracle of Light, I really don't see us being able to add the Oracle without some major revamps to it. So this is another job that I just don't see happening, since it's almost like another run-of-the-mill healing job. Mascot has always been fun to use because it has such a wide variety of useful abilities and high stats. But you really can't take it seriously despite how hard you try. Now, I do think that we will be getting another job that will allow us to transform, in a manner of speaking. We're able to shift into an enshrouded form with Reaper, for example, so I can see us going into maybe like another transformation type style job. Maybe into more of a spirit or beast form, but going out while wearing such costumes, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Especially since so many players already do love fighting in such ridiculous outfits, I don't see any real need for it. The Illusionist is able to use powers of the elements to do decent damage to all enemies at once. They tend to do a lot of damage because they can attack all enemies at the same time, and they tend to have high magical stats but are low in HP, so they often attack from a distance. Unfortunately, I can't really see them adding this one either because we have jobs that are literally identical to this, like with White Mage and Black Mage, so I just don't see a reason to add the Illusionist. Anyway, I guess that's it for now. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion and are just as excited as I am to see what's coming for us next. The next FanFest will be taking place at the end of July, so I'm sure that we will be seeing what kind of jobs will be added in the future. If they still plan to add 2 jobs per expansion, which I hope they do, then we should be finding out the identity of at least one of them by the end of July. Since we recently had both a healer and a DPS job added in the last expansion, leading us to have 4 tanks, 4 healers, 3 range DPS, 3 magical DPS, and 5 melee, not counting the limited job, I do believe that we will be getting 2 new DPS in the form of a range DPS and a magical DPS. At least that's what I would do to kind of even everything out. but that's just me. Anyway, everyone, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you continue to watch for more videos. If you have an idea or suggestion to what you would like to see next, please drop a comment down below, and please subscribe to get more videos like this one. But until next time, everyone, may you walk in the light of the crystal.